you're further to the left than me, if you're further to the right than me. It doesn't matter. All good faith questions will be given good faith answers. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to start to learn about it. It can feel like learning a different language sometimes. There's all these different three-letter agencies and abbreviations that you gotta know, and sometimes we refer to people just by their last name. It's like, what if you don't know who Schumer is? What if you don't know who McCarthy is? Shit like that. So I am here to assist in any part of your, politics learning that you might need assistance with. Edward Warren says insider trading needed. I don't know what you mean by needed. Can you clean up that question, Edward? So yeah, no question is too simple. You can ask me what the filibuster is, or reconciliation, or the continuing resolution. There's no limits. If I don't know something, I won't pretend like I do. I will admit when I don't know things. So you just gotta ask away. I don't believe in making people feel stupid or ashamed for not knowing things. So you don't got to worry about getting judged or ridiculed. You don't got to worry about, if I ask this question, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA lunatic, or if I ask this question, he's going to think I'm some sort of cuck libtard. There's no judgments here. I'm not here to get into fights. I'm not here to debate people. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Two Turnt Tander says, what do you think of Che Guevara? I honestly don't know enough about him to have a sincere opinion. I like, progressive political heroes, but I believe, just based on the little knowledge I have of him, that he is not like a perfectly, what do you call it? Perfectly great person with no blood on his hands, But again, I need to read more about him. Megan says, I'm concerned about HR 22 and the potential poll tax that it is. What is that? Is that the SAVE Act, HR 22? Can you? I don't have all the numbers of the House resolutions memorized. Michael says, what do you think of Insurrection Act on 420? I mean, it's concerning. As with everything with this administration, there's what they say they're going to do and then what they actually do, and then the lies that they tell about what they actually do. So it's just kind of the thing we have to, you either wait and see to see what it's going to be, or put some political pressure on your representatives. I'm just going to sit around and worry about things that I do not recommend at all. So if you're worried about this stuff, call your reps, or, start a political action group with your friends and start, putting political pressure on your representatives. And, there's already great groups doing this work, like Indivisible and Run for Something. So, you can go do some stuff there. I don't believe in just panicking for panicking sake and then hiding under the covers. If you're worried about the stuff, do something about it. Let's see here. Apple user says, is there any way Trump and his rich men will get in trouble for insider trading? So Trump, most likely not. The Supreme Court found that presidents are immune from legal prosecution for anything that they deem to be an official act. And because they are indebted to him for seating three of them, then they're not really going to throw him in jail for anything. But people in his orbit are definitely vulnerable to that sort of thing, because we're also talking about state charges, because Wall Street is partially regulated by New York State. Now there's an issue with the fact that Donald Trump made a deal with Mayor Eric Adams to get Eric Adams out of his legal jeopardy, so potentially, New York State would maybe not go after some of Trump's buddies because of pressure from the Adams administration. But it's possible, as with all of this stuff, political pressure works. So if you live in New York, like, that is something that you can be a part of. That is a movement that you can be a part of. Let's see here. Megan. Yeah, so the SAVE Act is a voter suppression bill. It is unlikely that it will pass because it would need a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. Now, that being said, we are dealing with an extremely craven and ruthless Republican Party, so I would not be surprised if there was a movement to get rid of the filibuster just to pass the SAVE Act. I'm not as worried about any Democrats joining the Republicans on that vote. If you're worried about your Democratic senator doing that, I would say call them up and tell them under no circumstances should you allow this bill to get a vote or even, vote for it yourself, God forbid. But yeah, it is further evidence of the difference between the parties, where one party is trying to make voting easier and one party is trying to make voting harder, particularly for the groups of people that don't tend to vote for them. And they are doing it under the auspice of voter security and election integrity and things like that. But that is all basically bullshit. The Heritage Foundation, I've just learned this stat, and it's pretty interesting for all y'all. The Heritage Foundation actually did some research into, how many cases of voter fraud that have existed in elections past, and they found 1,500 individual cases of voter fraud. But guess over how much time they found that. That's looking at every election that happened between now and 1980. They were only able to find 1,500 over 45 years. So yeah, anytime they tell you that they want the SAVE Act for election integrity and voter security and shit like that, and to cut down on voter fraud, you just know that they're lying. And also, they've admitted this. Like when they have like fucking, conservative, conferences and shit like that. They will admit to themselves, like, yeah, we just did voter ID in that state, and that's going to win that state for Trump, thank goodness, Zaymiruka says, man, I'm so panicked when the market is red yesterday. I was about to panic sell, but I buy instead. I'm not going to give anybody any kind of financial advice, but I would say that we don't know what Trump is going to do. He is psychotic. And so today's doing okay market is tomorrow's crashed market. And today's paused tariffs are tomorrow's brand new tariffs. User whole bunch of numbers says, how can you sit there and lie? I know that you know better than that. What do you think I lied about, user? Let's see here. Anthony Novellano says, what do you think we should do about our country's debt deficit? Is that really what your concern is, Anthony? When, we currently have a authoritarian government that is, deporting people for First Amendment violations, Anthony Novellano says, how should we reverse other countries' deficit? Yeah, Anthony, I don't really buy that this is, yes, because this directly affects our spending power and inflation. So yeah, are you talking about our trade deficit with other countries? Tony Robbie says, neither side lowers our deficit. I mean, Democrats do a better job with it than Republicans do. Louis says, is there any chance that Trump can be impeached? Yes, 100%. There is a chance that Trump can be impeached. Most likely, it will not happen with a Republican-controlled Congress. Because even if you got a bunch of Republicans to join the Democrats in impeaching Trump, which I should be clear, he has already done wildly impeachable things, even though he's only been in office since January. It is unlikely, even if they got Republicans to join the Democrats on that Mike Johnson would even bring that up for a vote. But if Democrats win back the House in the midterms in 2026, which we have a good chance of doing, but everybody should work to accomplish that goal. Everybody should join in trying to convince people to vote in more Democrats in both the House and the Senate. So yeah, if Democrats take back the House, then, Trump will get impeached. And if Democrats take the Senate and get 67 seats in the Senate, then we could even remove Trump from office. Now, getting 67 seats in the Senate would be a very lofty goal, but it would just take a lot of work, And so if people do all that work, then we can do that. But, what people say when they say it's unlikely that we'll get 67 Democratic seats in the Senate is that they don't think that people are going to do that much work. Laszlo says, authoritarian Joe Biden mandated an unconstitutional clot shot. The Supreme Court overturned it. Okay, but Joe Biden didn't illegally deport people to an El Salvadorian concentration camp. Joe Biden didn't deport people for saying things that he did not like. Joe Biden didn't sue fucking law firms for representing people that he didn't like. Laszlo, I don't really buy that you're a real person. Coffee Maker says, you think they'll actually check for insider trading? I'm skeptical that they will check, because the people who would check are basically all Trump lackeys. But there are some investigative tools that even Democrats in the minority might be able to pull. There might be some people at the FTC who can, go rogue and pull some data for us. But yeah, I think that it is unlikely that we'll see any consequences from that. Let's see here. Trump forever says Joe Biden did not protect this country. He certainly did a better job than Trump is doing right now. Also, that's not a question, so you're blocked. Let's see here. Nick says, God bless America. It's going great. Are you being sarcastic, Nick? Runarder449 says they have been insider trading for decades. He created a short trap. Yeah, so there's a difference, though, between the kind of insider trading that, people in government usually do and what Trump did. He was bragging in the Oval Office about how much money he made for Charles Schwab and, this other fucking ding-dong. He's like, that guy made $2 billion. Isn't that fucking cool? Let's see here. Zay Myruka says, who are you talking to? TikTok? Yes, I multicast on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. Is foreigners working in America eligible for votes? I do not believe so. I guess it would depend on whatever kind of agreement. If you have a green card, if you have a work visa, that I'm not 100% on. John Roberts says, Biden's son used Biden's name and position to pack his pockets. All right, well, that's not illegal. Nepotism is not illegal, Jordan Roberts. But what Trump is doing with his kids, that is illegal. Like his fucking, what do you call it? His son-in-law, he pardoned his dad. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, got $2 billion from the Saudis. He probably sold them like nuclear secrets or some shit like that. So that's fully illegal and corrupt, what Trump is doing. But Biden's son just being a Nepo baby, like, that's not illegal. If it was, half of Hollywood would be in jail right now. Dan Blackroyd says, here's a cool trick. Were you fined? Were you arrested? Were you charged? No, not a mandate. Dan Blackroyd fucking nails it again, man. He's the GOAT. Stephen Charles says, do you know who mentored Trump? If so, that's all you need to know about the man. Yeah, watch the movie The Apprentice. He was mentored by a guy named Roy Cohen, who was a ruthless and corrupt lawyer in New York City. And yeah, as with any, there was another movie called, I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, any movie that they sort of like talking about like behind the scenes of Republican shit, like there was that movie that Megyn Kelly did about the Fox News shit. I forget what was called. Fucking, what's her name? Anyways, all of those movies are extremely accurate. They are damning, but they are also not nearly mean enough, in my opinion. Dan Blackroyd, Angels in America. Yeah, Angels in America talked about that as well. Free Thinker LLC says, yeah, you just lost all credibility by not knowing what investment form is versus nepotism. Okay, well, you don't have to be here. Cooter says, why do you cuss so much? Because it's a free fucking country. Ginger Bombshell, thank you very much. Let's see here. Margot Robbie, yes, she is also in that. Let's see here. Hello from UK, I still love America, I just hope America works it all out. Yeah, me too, Wayne. Me fucking too. Yeah, Freethinker LLC, you didn't ask a question, so you're out of here, congratulations. Let's see here. Gabagool Enthusiast says, repeal the NFA. I actually don't even know what the NFA is. Yeah, clean that up for me. Stephen Charles says, there's a through line from McCarthy to Cohen to Trump. Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't know about a connection from McCarthy to Cohen. That's pretty interesting. Laszlo Holyfield says, soy boy. I mean, I gave your mom some soy last night. Also, that's not a question, so you're out of here. Alrighty. Defund the ATF. Yeah, I mean, why would you want an organization that makes sure that that alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are regulated, Like, why? Let's just go back to having fucking bathtub gin and people fucking going blind from unregulated alcohol. And let's make it so that people have more guns. We don't have enough gun violence in America. We should not have a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. That sounds fucking great. Yeah, why don't we make it so that fucking tobacco companies can lie about their products to us some more, Like, y'all are not really thinking about, I should stop fighting. I'm not here to fight. I am here to answer questions. All right. Just gonna block you instead of fighting. All right. Mike Davis says, you don't think there's a double standard, do you? Trump got railroaded by corrupt Dems. That's not accurate, Mike Davis. So the difference is that Trump actually did illegal things, and then a completely independent Justice Department prosecuted Trump for the very real illegal things that he did. Whereas Trump is issuing executive orders for the Justice Department to investigate and indict specific U.S. citizens that he does not like. There is a big difference there. Biden specifically never talked about any specific charges against Trump or taking action against Trump because he rightly upheld the separation between the Justice Department and the executive branch. What you are thinking about, like a corrupt political party weaponizing the justice system against their political enemies, that's literally what Trump is doing. But there's no evidence that Biden ever did anything like that. Alrighty, Rhino's saying complete BS. And that's not a question, so you're out of here as well. Scarlet's, Gabagool Enthusiast says, could a flat tax be beneficial? Only to the rich. Let's see here. Muzzking says, yay, more rat poison in cigarettes. Let's see here. Scarlet says, hi, do you think the use of NDAs to hide criminal activity has increased all these issues? Yeah, I think NDAs are generally pretty unenforceable depending on what state you are signing your NDA in. They're mainly, I think, an intimidation tactic where people are worried about having to go to court to, justify the, disclosures that they have put forward. You can see that with that book, Careless People, that came out where, Facebook and Meta and Mark Zuckerberg are suing to try to get her to keep her mouth shut and pull the book. But everybody, because there's so much money behind that, the publisher is not intimidated at all. And it's just like, yeah, we're not pulling the book. Go to hell. Mermaid Serenity Gift says, will Republicans stop being fascist? They will, Mermaid, if they feel electoral consequences for their fascism. Right now, I'd say right now, but over the last 25-ish years, Republicans have become more and more fascist and more extreme, and they have not suffered electoral consequences for that. Now, why have they not? There's a problem with our culture in the way that we internalize political messaging, where Democrats never get any credit and Republicans never get any blame. People have an unclear idea of the parties. They think the Democratic Party is worse than it actually is, and that the Republican Party is actually better than it is. And we've allowed this to happen. We've allowed the mainstream media to sort of be pushed to the right because of, false accusations of impartiality. And we have all plugged our noodles into these social media machines that are just flooding us with misinformation and propaganda in order to skew our perspectives about politics, where people have weird ideas about what the Democratic platform is, and people have weird ideas about what Republicans should and should not be responsible for. People get mad at the Democrats for quote unquote caving during the most recent fight over the continuing resolution. But they're for some reason they're more mad about that than they are about the actual continuing resolution that Republicans wrote and voted for. Do you see how there's the little, there's a difference there in how we are judging the political parties? People are madder at Democrats for not being able to stop the shitty things that Republicans are doing than they are mad at Republicans for doing the shitty things in the first place. So yeah, once Republicans start feeling a consequence for their fascism and for their extremism, then yeah, they will change. But so far they haven't. And the reason why they haven't is because they are in league with the billionaire class, and the billionaire class uses all of their money and influence to create these narratives that increase political power for the Republican Party and decrease political power for the Democrats. And so long as we allow them to get away with that, so long as we allow the billionaire class to get away with buying our politics and influencing our narratives, by just fucking slopping down whatever goop they sell us on social media, then they're just going to continue getting away with it. So long as we allow the billionaire class to separate us and get us to fight amongst each other, where the voters are saying you're the bad guy, right, Republican voters are saying you're the bad guy to Democratic voters, and Democratic voters are saying you're the bad guy to Republican voters, and centrist Democrats are saying you're the bad guy to progressive Democrats, and vice versa, instead of all of us saying the billionaires and the Republican Party that is working with them, they're the bad guys, then they're going to continue getting away with it. So if you think that's a problem, join me, guys, in fucking fixing this issue, in correcting these narratives, and in taking political power away from the Republican Party. Alrighty, having some connection issues early. Chris Jacobs, I have to leave YouTube because